So I'm Sven, I'm a DevOps advocate for Atlassian, and I'm talking about developer joy. Just for a show of hands, who's using Jira? All right, and now, who's enjoy using Jira? Hi, thank you very much. That was two hands up, great, we have a conversation afterwards. But I totally get the rest of you, right? We didn't became developers to plan and track our work. That's not nothing that why we became a developer, right? We wanted to write code, or even more, we wanted to create value for customers so we can help them to do things faster, better, more automated, all those things. That's why we became developers, right? So you might think, why is this guy from Atlassian staying on stage talking about developer joy at all, right? Because actually we care also internally about our developers and let them enjoy their jobs. So there has been something in the last 10 years of software development what happened to the job, to the role of the software developers, right? So things have actually changed. I'm an old developer. I started in 2000 developing professional software. So I remember the days where we were just like writing code and then just like created the code and gave it to the ops people that could run that code. But these days, things have actually changed. The role of software developers have changed, and that has to do also with do we enjoy what we're doing, right? So if we look back, what happens actually in the last 10 years is the cloud came on. So we had to learn all these new paradigms, how to develop software for the cloud, right? It's different than developing software for your on-prem environment. It's totally different. So we had to learn all these new cloud vendors, AWS, all these libraries, how to use them. And then also we now run everything into small little containers, right? We have to containerize our app, we have to learn Docker, and we have to run those containers, right? And what happens, and we have to learn just like what happens if the container is down. Where's the log file? Guess what? The log file is not there anymore because your container is down. So all these things we had to learn in the past 10 years. And then also microservices, right? With a big monolith, it was great. We had everything in just like one single repository, and it was running in one single big one-tenant application. But now we call microservices, and what happens if the microservice is not there on the other side? We have to deal with that too. And then also security and governance. Guess what? Everything is running in the cloud. Well, there are people that want to get into your software. So we have to take care about these things too. In the past, maybe things were behind firewalls, the ops people were taking care of that, and now we have to build that into our apps. And then, you build it, you run it, right? We are not only responsible for building the software, now we are also responsible for running the software, adding observability to our tool chains and all these things. And guess what? All these things has been added in the last 10 years to the job, to the role of the software developer. And yeah, there's more things that we should do, right? More cognitive load, more things in our head that we have to deal with. Don't get me wrong. I think it's actually for the better. We are actually more responsible, also now for the operational side. We are more responsible for what we build. So all good. And I think the overall quality of software has actually improved. But there's more things that we do. So now our managers come and say, hey, what's with the productivity? 10 years ago, you were cranking out features, right? Like hell. And now, well, we have to wait for features so long. And so guess what, right? We're doing more stuff, right? So we are slower, right? But we're doing more stuff. But yeah, so how do we get back to productivity? This is a question that I get from a lot of CTOs. Like, Sven, tell me, how can we get our developers back to being really, really productive so they can crank out features like in the past, right? So there's an obsession with productivity, and I will take you on a small time travel with me. Is that okay with you? You want to go on a time travel with me? Yeah, I guarantee you I'll bring you back. So I count to 3, and then we're traveling back in time, 126 years actually, back in time. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Boom. All right. So here we are. The year is 1898, and we are in the Bethlehem Steel Factory. So, Bethlehem Steel Factory, they had some productivity issues, right? They were not producing so much than the years before. And at that time, well, they couldn't call a Boston Consulting Group to just like bring in a bunch of consultants and fix the things, right? Or McKinsey's. These consultant companies didn't exist, but they had one guy, and his name was Frederick Winslow Taylor. So Frederick Winslow Taylor, actually famous for his Taylorism. Some of you might heard Taylorism before. So he came in and were just like observing what the factory workers were doing, right? So he was just like looking at it, and what he did is he took out his stopwatch, and then just like stopwatch everything, right? Just like took the time, how much time does it take, arranged maybe some stations differently, so the more optimal flow, for more optimal flow. Another thing that he noticed was that when the workers were actually shuffling coal was falling left and right from the shuffles. So they were shuffling, and then coal was falling left and right. So what he did, he gave the workers custom-made shuffles. These shuffles were made for shuffling soil. And now they were used for shuffling coal. So they need different shuffles, so gave them different shuffles, and then increased the productivity. And what he also noticed is, so he also measured how much these workers could carry each day. And obviously, in the morning, they could carry more than in the evening. They're getting exhausted all over the day. So what he did, actually, he gave the workers more pauses in between. So he gave them pauses in between, so the overall, how much they carried throughout the day increased. So all great things, right? And he did a bunch of other stuff and increased the productivity of the factory workers by 400%. Boom, wow. Amazing, right? 400% increase. But everything comes with a flip side. Also, when you increase the productivity that much, the workers, they were not supposed to think anymore. They were just like doing repetitive tasks. They were just like doing the same stuff all over, and they got told by the managers what they had to do. So now I told you, I bring you back to the year 2024, because this was 126 years ago. And it sounds like we still want to fix software development, increase productivity in software development like what we did 126 years ago, even though we did a totally different job, right? This is totally different, just like a factory, steel factory is totally different than developing software. All right, so how do we measure developer productivity these days, right? What are we doing? So traveling back now in time, and we actually did a recent survey, super interesting, how people are measuring productivity. And the number one thing that people said, that managers actually said, was this: we count the lines of code, right? Oh, I hear that. Yeah, it has nothing to do with productivity, especially if you have Copilot or something like this. You can crank out a lot of lines of code, and seems like you're very productive. So, but this is seems like just like the easiest one to measure, and that's why they're measuring it. Or they're measuring issues, how many issues we get into the done column, right? But there are smaller and bigger tasks that we have to do, so this is not a good measurement. So of course, yeah, we use story points, right? Or even more fancy t-shirt sizes, small, medium, large, extra large, all these t-shirt sizes. So it's like we size our stories, and then we know how productive we are because we did 3 medium stories, 5 XL stories, great. But that's not a good measurement, because what we do with story points is an estimate. So we don't know actually how productive we were. I can estimate it and say, okay, that's a medium story, but it's actually a small story, right? So finding out when I'm doing it, so this is also not a good measurement for productivity. What can we use, right? There are things like cycle time, yeah, and deployment frequency, and we're getting closer to really seeing like, is that something that we want to measure for productivity? But let's assume we have the ultimate number of measuring productivity. Let's say it's 4.7, whatever the unit is. Then people come in and say, the managers come in and say, okay, we need to get that down or up or whatever the metric is, right? We need to have more story points done or more pull request reviews done, right? We want to have better productivity. Thank you very much, Frederick Winslow Taylor. People are still thinking in these terms of development work is like factory work. It is not. And that's why I'm a big fan of not calling it developer productivity, but we want to increase the developer experience. You have heard probably that term too in the last couple of months, years, actually, that people are just like saying, okay, we want to increase the developer experience. And I think that's a better word for it. But saying also that there are now companies like the McKinseys and consultant groups that are actually setting up frameworks to measure the experience and to increase the experience of the developers, bringing consultant people in again and want to sell you, we improve your experience by X%, right? McKinsey brought that out, and you can see story points completed right in the middle there. They added that again, where we actually know that this is not a good measurement for productivity at all. So at Atlassian, we were thinking about, okay, what is actually the ultimate thing that we want developers to have, right? Well, how can we just like get the most out of our developers? And we think that's like we go back to developer joy. We became developers for a reason because we enjoy that job. So how do we spark that flame again, or how do we make that flame bigger and help developers to enjoy more what they are doing? And guess what? When they are enjoying what they are doing, they are also productive. That's just like a natural next step. So if we think about developer joy, I bring to you a few things. I talked about a few things here. And I think these things are essential for my developer joy, actually. And the first thing is developer quality. I want to work with great quality code. I want to read code and say, okay, this is great. I want to open my IDE and say, okay, I like the code. I like to work with that code. So this is number one. Number two is I want to do things fast. I don't want to wait for a long time for just like get some other people to get stuff done. I want to do it myself. I want to just like move fast forward. I don't want to wait for long builds to take place, long tests to run. I wanted to do things fast. So fast progress through our pipelines, that's when I enjoy working. And then also, I want to create great value for our customers, right? When the customers come back to me and say, Sven, we love what you just like built. I feel like very, very proud of it. I feel just like I'm owning that, right? So that's when I'm actually enjoying my developer job. So with these three things come together. So let's talk a little bit about quality. So we want to increase quality of our code, and we want to just get feedback of our code, right? And you want to get feedback for your code too. So you're doing code reviews, right? Everyone doing code reviews here? Nodding? Okay, great. Great agreement here. But there is something with code reviews, actually, why people feel a little bit like, I don't like to actually put my code out there to get reviewed by other people. There are some reasons for that, right? Give you an example here. So, assuming I've written that code, right? I've added these lines of code. Doesn't matter what it does, but I put that pull request out, add some of my colleagues to it, and then say, hey, can you please give me feedback about the code? And the first comment I get is this. Duh, right? Okay. Okay. I breathe in, breathe out, and say, okay, what do you mean? And then the person says, oh, this code is ugly. I say, okay, I really hate that code review already here. Thank you very much. I shouldn't have put out that pull request. Thank you very much for the feedback. But hey, I'm a professional developer, so I say, okay, I want to learn. So what do you mean by ugly, right? And then the person comes back and says, yeah, it would have been nicer if you used a for loop, right? I said, nicer? Well, the while loop is okay. Tell me more. I want to learn, right? Nicer, that's not what I can learn from because it's nicer, right? So, 4 words if you do these kind of comments. Don't be a jerk. So, don't do this, right? So, who has been bullied by a jerk, let's say, in the last 2-3 months? No, don't raise your hands. I know your coworkers are in the room, so it's fine, all good. Yeah, but actually, those people that just like give feedback without empathy, right? They are just like why other people hate code reviews, why we don't do code reviews, or why I feel like I don't want to put myself out there. So bringing you a story from the Jira team. So the Jira team, actually, they wanted to avoid this situation. They really want to have feedback about the code that they have written from other co-workers, and not just like from the AI, but from real people, real humans. So they were looking at it and saying, okay, good. if you look at it, the reviewer is in this protected bubble, right? So sitting there in this protected bubble, can throw things at the author, because the author is just like opening themselves up, right? They just like saying, okay, give me feedback. So they made some rules to protect the author. So they say, first, assume competence, right? We hire people, we have a lot of hiring processes, they have to go through a lot of interviews, tests, right? We hire competent people, right? These people are competent to write code. This is the first thing, right? We are all competent to write code. So assume competence is the first rule that they set themselves. Be constructive in your feedback. This code looks ugly, not constructive, right? What can I do with that comment? Nothing, right? So be constructive in your feedback, second rule. And the third rule is explain your reasoning. People want to learn, right? That's why they put out code reviews. They want to learn, so explain your reasoning why this is actually important. So they set up also a bunch of other rules also for them, author themselves, to just like say, okay, please review the code before you actually put it out on the pull request. So you're sure the code is good, it's clean, it's everything. But they have this rule, so they put up this page, and guess what? If someone actually rants about the code or something, they can point to that, says, this is not how we want to work. This is our etiquette, our code etiquette. This is not how we want to work. So no bullying means more developer joy. You enjoy more what you're doing. And you're also more productive. All right, so the next thing, the next example here is from the Confluence team, the team that writes Confluence. Once you've written code, pull request out there, you need to just like run your tests, right? And sometimes it happens when you run your test that this actually happens. The test turns red. Ooh. It's okay. Right? That's why we have tests, right? It's okay if the test is red. What we do now is just like, we look at the log files, what happened actually, we open our IDE and look what causes actually this test to turn red, and we can't find it. We just like, we don't understand. Okay, so look a little bit closer, maybe get another coworker to look at it, you can't find it. What's the next step that I'm gonna do? Yes, I'm rerunning the test, right? So just like try again, and says, oh, it's green now. Great, we can move on. Great, we have done it. But no. You just discovered a flaky test, right? You need to do something about that. Oh, it's time for a commercial. I'll be back after the break.
Is seeing red build after red build getting old? Is rerunning your failed jobs getting you down? Is waiting on those failed jobs to finish making you crazy? Deterministic Reliability is here to help. With our handy-dandy flaky test monitoring system, we will, eventually, automatically bypass those flaky tests. For 4 easy payments of free, you too can save time, ship quality code faster, be more productive, feel so much better when you go to work every day. You will be happier, your team will be happier, you'll stop dying inside, you'll stop banging your head against your desk, you'll stop replacing computers that are in a rage against the wall. Sorry. It's just a little close to home. Call 1-800-Atlassian today to get your free flake monitoring system.
Oh, please don't call Atlassian. We don't have a product out there that is a flaky test detector. But the team actually built it for internal use to help other teams with detecting flaky tests. So this is how it works, right? You create a pull request, the build and test phase kicks off, right? And then the test fails, flaky test detector says, hello, let me just try it, and reruns the test a couple of times. Test is green, flaky test detector says, ha, got it, right? I just discovered a flaky test. So the next step is that we mark the test as skip test, so it's not going to run anymore, but we are also adding a comment to the pull request, so someone has actually to look at it. And then also you get this message in Slack where it shows like, okay, someone has to really look at that and fix that flaky test, or that flaky code could also be, right? So That means actually we're saving a lot of time, not just like trying to debug everything. So it's less frustration in debugging, couldn't find the problem, and more developer joy at the end. We're saving also a lot of time with that. Just like think about it, maybe 15 minutes you need to just like figure out that this is a flaky test. This is time that is actually saved by the flaky test detector. All right, so great. Let's talk about flow. Flow is just like the thing when you're just like in the moment, right? You don't see left and right what's happening. You don't see that it's getting dark outside. You're so much in the code. You are very productive. You are in the flow. Now, unfortunately, software development is not just about the coding phase, right? There's much more to that, right? We can optimize that to being more in the flow phase, but we can also optimize the build and test phase, go from hours to minutes, right? Look at the test, how can you maybe parallelize the test, or even the deployment phase where you just like say, okay, we just like deploy small little bits and microservices, great, so we don't have to deploy the whole monolith, so saving time there. But there's one phase in between here that takes a lot of time. That's the review phase, right? It can take actually days. So also another Confluence team actually measured how long does it take on average from opening a pull request to merge it back into the main branch. And they came up to 3 days, right? This means 3 days actually of the developer working on other stuff, getting feedback, going back to what they have done 3 days before, and then remember why they have done these things, right? So it takes a lot of time, right? So one team actually, the team lead of those teams, his name is Punit Arora. So Punit actually went in, looked at all the open pull requests, looked at who's on the reviewer, who hasn't reviewed the pull request yet, and pinged them early in the morning before they went into the flow stage. So early morning saying, hey, you might have missed it, right? I know there's a lot of stuff going on, you might have missed it, but your coworkers, they want to move on. They want to just like, want to merge that back to the main branch, that pull request. So please help your coworkers in reviewing that pull request so everyone can move on. You also want that your code gets reviewed in time. So works great, but then the team said, actually, okay, great. It helps us to get reminder about what's going on, but you don't have to do that, Punit. We fire you. We replace you with a bot called the Punit bot, and now the Punit bot is actually pinging everyone in the morning, just like about open pull requests. So they broke down from 3 days after a test period to 1.2 days of average of running a pull request. Well, they learned a bunch of other stuff during that lesson, also that some change sets were actually too big, right? So they split it up into smaller because people were opening it and saying, "Oh no, I'm going to review it when I got more time. I cannot review it just over lunch. So I'm gonna reserve some more time there." So they learned that they had to submit smaller bits. So all of these learnings went, and they finished with 1.2 days. So that means less wait time for the developers actually, and more developer joy at the end. As I said, I'm obsessed with flow. And we just like learned about flow inside the team is great, but mostly when flow breaks, it's actually the flow between teams, right? How do we get frictionless flow between teams? When we are relying on other teams to do stuff, there's always friction and always wait time. So how do we get better at that? And you know what? When people just like say, okay, how can we get better work between teams? They say, okay, let's add some processes to this, right? Really love processes. And there are situations when we need processes. For example, in traffic, right? So this is a simulation of a junction with traffic lights. It's great that we have a process there that we have to stop and the other can drive, but it adds friction to our experience of driving the cars through the city. So we have a throughput here in this simulation of 235 vehicles per minute. How can we get that experience better? Right, in traffic, right? Look at this. This is a stack interchange. The cars are just like moving. They merge magically into the next lane. No one is stopping really. That's a great process, right? That's a better one, even though this is much more complicated. What does that have to do with work? Also, traffic flow, 1,099 cars per minute can just like pass that stack interchange. All right. How do we get that into teams, into frictionless work between teams? The same thing that here, right? That we can just like flow automatically. Yeah, we have to make our teams more autonomous, right? We need to just like have autonomy inside those teams so we don't rely too much on other teams, right? Of course, yeah, these autonomous teams needs to be highly aligned. What does that mean if we want to have autonomous teams, right? We need people inside our team, like designers, like QA people, right? So we don't have to just like reach out to the QA team, get feedback maybe after 1 week, and then move on, right? We want to just like tap directly into the QA people directly when we need them. So Trello team was actually looking at that and saying, great, we want to make our team more autonomous, but we have the following problem. So 1 QA person, 30 developers, that's the ratio. So we don't have 30 people teams, right? 30 developer people teams where we put on 1 QA person. So we have to split that QA person somehow. So we were looking at that. How can we solve that? Bring autonomy to the team, but also leverage the QA knowledge and make things more faster, right? So we were looking at this. Developers were doing automated tests. QA people were doing the exploratory tests. So we were saying, no, everything is done by the developers. QA is just like there for assisting the developers to become better testers. Also, it has the side effect that, maybe that was the main effect actually, that the developers take more responsibility of the quality of the code they are writing because they are now responsible for the whole thing. And we're doing this with QA kickoffs. So QA kickoffs helps us with this team autonomy. So QA kickoffs means there's a user story, and before you actually implement the code, you get a QA person and say, okay, let's look at how would you test that code. So there's a quality assistant person coming with you and saying, okay, let's write down the test plan. Let's write down step by step how you would test the code and come up with a plan. Then the QA person leaves, the quality assistant person, and the developer is implementing the code, testing the code according to the plan, exploratory testing, manual testing, and deploys it to production, without the QA person actually looking at that. Which is not entirely true. We're doing things like a demo, and I talk about it in a sec. There's a little bit of a safety net there, but the QA person doesn't have to attend the demo. It's an optional thing, but the responsible is now at the development team. And things flow faster through our pipelines. We're more independent now. So less dependencies and wait time for the QA from the QA department, and more developer joy. Things are progressing faster. So the last example that I want to give is this here. We know that product teams and developer teams speak different languages, but we have to work together, right? Giving you a real example of what I experienced actually. So I got this user story years ago from a product manager and saying, as a user, I want to export the data so I can have it in an Excel file. I said, okay, great. Good user story, I take that. Easy peasy, button, boom, export Excel file dialog, great, done. Gave it back to the product manager. The product manager was looking at it and says, okay, I'm looking at the file, but there's so much other data in there. There's data about creation, last time changed. I'm not interested in that user data, right? Can you just like give me the important data? And says, okay, great, a little bit frustrated. I have to go back again and say, okay, rewrite the user story. As a user, I want to export the important data so I can have it in an Excel file. Great, did that. And the person came back and says, oh, great, Sven, yeah, it's all the important data in there. That's exactly what I needed. Thank you very much. But actually, we didn't know. Is there a difference between a CSV file and an Excel file? Yeah, there is. All right. And we actually need a CSV file. Oh, okay, good. Came back, get back, just like rewrote it and say, okay, as a user, I want to export the important data so I can have it in a CSV file. Great, did that, right? And then the person said, great, perfect. We exported it as a CSV file and imported it back into our CRM system. It's working. Thank you very much. It's working. I said, what are you doing? You're importing it into CRM. We have an API. I could just like shuffle the data over via the API. We don't need this import-export thing, right? And that was a frustrating moment where I think I didn't understand the whole story, right? I didn't know the why am I doing this. And the product managers are not doing it for purpose, right? They just like do spend a lot of time and just like research, measurements, interviews, experiments, prototypes. The problem is they squeeze that into a small little user story, and we should build the running software out of that, assuming all the things that are here on the left. But the user story is just like transporting it over. We don't discuss things, right? So the Jira team actually wanted to avoid that, and they want to bring back together the product and the developers more. So they were looking at the phases that we were going through, and the developers are, we are just like in that make phase, right? We create stuff. And then the product people are more in the problem phase, talking about the problem, what is it that we want to solve, but there are more phases actually. There's also the solution phase. Once we identify the problem, we have to talk about the solutions, right? What will actually solve that problem? And then don't forget the measurement phase. The impact phase. So just like once things are ready, we need to look at how's the impact with our customers. So developers involving in all those stages, no, we don't want more cognitive load on the developers, right? So we involve them maybe a little bit in the problem phase and mostly in the create phase, and then also in the measure phase, where the product people are more involved in the problem, in the wonder phase. So we actually set milestones like doing project kickoffs, right? We're doing project kickoffs. We're bringing all teams together, the IT people, the QA people, the development people, everyone together, and we're doing a project kickoff together, right? So the developers know actually what is the problem, why are we doing it, why do we solve it, what are the customers thinking? We're building prototypes. We're doing demos during the create phase, and then we're doing something like we call goal signals measures, where we get feedback from our customers and review if we solved actually the problems. So involving everyone in all those phases helps us to get a common understanding, to get a shared understanding about what we're doing, where we are. I want to talk a little bit about demos because this is what mostly affects developers, right? So we're not doing these kind of demos anymore. We're doing weekly demos. Every team we're doing that, sitting together in one room. We work remotely mostly. We can work from anywhere. So we're doing them over Zoom, but the rules are the same. So what we say with demo sessions, so first they are open, so everyone can join actually. Everyone can just like come in. I can watch every Jira demo session, every Confluence demo session, so everyone can join those demo sessions. They are outcome-oriented. We don't talk about implementation details, what happens with the database, which database did we choose. We talk about what the customer value actually. Then we discuss and challenge the solution. So we just like want to get early feedback. The product manager might say, okay, now that I see the solution, maybe I have to get back to the customer and present it to the customer. I'm not sure if that is really solving their problems. But we get early feedback in that cycle. And also we're sitting together, right? So why not celebrate if we just like had a milestone together? We can just like celebrate together, which is also great. So this is really helping the whole team to gather around the product that we're building and get updates what's actually happening. But we're doing one thing differently these days. Everyone can join. We're not doing anymore. Everyone can watch. We're not doing Zoom calls anymore. We're not doing in-person demos anymore. We are recording the demos and then share that with everyone. So this is a change that we recently did. It's actually an experiment that we ran, and it was super successful. So now you might think, but Sven, right? This is the purpose of the whole demo sessions, is to get reactions from other parts of the business, or to have just like clarified questions. So why did we do that? Why are we doing this? So how can you do that when you just like send out demo videos? It's because we're using a tool called Loom, and you can get feedback. You can give feedback directly in the video on the timeline. You can see all the reactions here. And this is a comment that I had on the demo. So you have actually an engagement through those videos. And guess what? We measured it, and we have 50% more engagement when we're doing these demo videos than doing Zoom calls. Because more people are actually watching it, and people feel more open to share their thoughts about it through a comment. So we call this demo culture, and we had the goal of running 5,000 demo videos in 2024. We are already at 17,000 demo videos in our Loom instance. All right, so this means less rework frustration and more developer joy at the end, right? Because we get feedback early in the cycle, and get feedback also from the product manager, from customers, from QA people in that cycle. All right, so now you might say, Sven, these were all great examples, right? Totally cool, but where's the measurement? Where are the numbers? Show me the numbers, right? What would Frederick Winslow Taylor say to that? And yeah, Frederick Winslow Taylor didn't say that, but actually Peter Drucker said that if you can't improve it, if you can't measure it, you can't improve it. That's kind of right? We need to just like know if we're on the right path. And if you don't know where to start with measurement, I think the DORA metrics, if you are developing microservice environment, right, the DORA metrics are probably the ones that you can just like take a look at, start with, but don't take this for granted. This is not the ultimate measurement of your developer experience or developer joy, right? If development frequency goes up. Doesn't make sense, development frequency doesn't make sense for mobile developers. If you develop mobile software, you don't want to deploy it every 2 minutes to the App Store. That doesn't make sense. So just like you need to look at your team. What is the challenge that you have inside your team and pick that metric, right? Every team is different. So you need to just, there is no magic number, right? You have to pick the problem that you have and try to find the right measurements for that. And then share that with the team. So we use actually our own tool called Compass for that. And we have things like the DevOps health here. So we can actually see when a metric goes underneath the baseline, and then we have to do something. Or do we have to do something? That's also a good question, right? The metric shows like, okay, deployment frequency went down, but we know actually we are currently working on a very, very complicated part of the subsystem. So of course, we don't deploy that often, right? So we need to talk about these metrics. These are just numbers on a screen. And we need to just like review them and talk about them. So we're doing a weekly ritual called CheckOps, where we come together as a team and talk about those metrics and then find out that, yeah, the metric is down, but in 2 weeks it will go up again, and then we will be back to normal. We built actually this directly into Compass. So this weekly ritual, we just like tell what went well, what didn't went well, to have this just like a little bit of a retrospective on the metrics, on developer joy. All right, I told you every team should pick their own metric, right? Which is not entirely right. We have one metric that we actually measure for all the teams, right? And this is this one here. Change the business. How much time do developers actually spend on change the business? So changing the business means new features for actually our customers, value that we create for our customers. How much time do we spend on that, right? This is an important number for us because we want developers to spend more time exactly on this, right? But we also know that this is not all, right? We also need to spend time on keeping the lights on or running the business. Infrastructure, CI/CD pipeline, all of these things. We need to also have time for doing that. And we give people a little bit of a compass where they should head and give them, okay, if you're just like a normal development team, every team is different, so every team needs to just like adjust the numbers according to what they think is best for them. But we say a minimum of 55% you should spend on changing the business, and 35% you should spend on keeping the lights on, including status meetings and other meetings, right? That's also keeping the lights on. So this is just like guidance for those developers where they should spend their time. All right, now I see some head-scratching people here. 55 plus 35 is just like 90%, Sven. What is with the rest 10%? Is that slack time or whatever? It's kind of a little bit of slack time because the rest 10%, we ask people to spend on developer joy. Improving their developer joy. Could be building a Flaky test detector. Could be building a punit bot. All of these things are built in this 10% of the time where the team takes time off their normal schedule and improve the way they work. It's super important that we take time also to reflect and see just like where can we improve and how can we improve the way we work. So we're measuring actually that. This is Atlassian Analytics, so you can really see just like how much time you spend on things. We give that to the teams so they get a little bit of feedback loop. And we want them actually to spend this 10% of the time on improving the way they work. Now, we've been talking a lot about developer productivity, and I talk to a lot of CTOs, and they just like see development like this here. Like, this is the software development lifecycle. Spend this time on idea phase, plan phase, code phase, review phase, and we need to just like get those numbers down and see where we can improve things. But guess what? Software development is not like a production line. We don't produce the same car over and over again, right? Software development is a creative job, right? And we can't really say. We build things that no one has actually built before. So this is super new. So we need to just like look differently at software development and can't use that Fredericks or Taylor assumptions here on software development, right? So there's another quote here. Measure what's important, but don't make important what you can measure. But what is important, right? What is really important for developers? Where are they struggling? How do you find that out? Where do you get your metrics? The first thing before you find a number is actually pretty easy. It's like, goes like this. Ask your developers. They know where they are struggling. They know where they have problems. Ask them. Have an honest conversation about that. And we are doing it in a more processed way because we are around 7,000 developers at Atlassian. So we just like, our team runs so-called surveys, developer joy surveys. And we are asking these questions. How satisfied are you with shipped quality code, right? How satisfied are you with the waiting time? How satisfied are you with your execution independence, just like executing independently and don't rely too much on other teams? Your access to tools, processes, and practices. Are you satisfied with that? Or do we have to do something? Do we have the right tools to work effectively? Effort managing external standards like security and governance. Is that okay, the balance, right? We know we need to do that. Are you satisfied with the balance? Managing your code pipeline and infrastructure. Are you satisfied with that? And how about the ramp-up time? If you get new developers in your team, is the ramp-up time okay? Are you satisfied with the ramp-up time? Does it take an okay time to bring people up to speed? And what about your developer satisfaction overall? That's an important number to just like measure over all teams, right? So we are asking all these questions and asking them, how satisfied are you with that? But said that, teams are different, right? And some things are important for one team, but not for the other team. We have so many teams, and teams are super different. So ramp-up time, for example, could be important for one team, but if you don't onboard a lot of new developers, it's not important for you, right? So we are also asking, how important is that for your team? And out of these two measurements, we are calculating a so-called opportunity score. And we have this, if you're just like in this white corridor, you see here importance here and satisfaction up here. So if you're in this white corridor, importance and satisfactions, even it's quite good balanced here. If you're just like falling into that category, not very satisfied, but super important, you have to do something. So you have to go in there and say, okay, wait time is our most burning thing, most precious thing, most challenge that we have. Let's find the measurements. Let's dive deeper into that and say, why is wait time the most precious thing? If you want to learn more about this metric, we have a so-called play out there called Developer Experience Survey. It's a free resource. You can just like go there. I also have a QR code if you just like want to go there. All the questions are in there that you can run with your team to find out what is the really pressure with your team, how you calculate the opportunity score. We shared all this publicly. All right. So wrapping things up here. Once you find out what the problem is, you find a good measurements for that. What can we measure? What are the signals that can show we are on the right track, right? And the next thing is just like you're trying to fix things. You saw the flaky test detector. We're trying to just like make this less painless, the flaky tests. And also what's important is if one team built that flaky test detector, they need to spread the learnings. And you saw the video. So the team built that video to spread, and it went viral within Atlassian, and everyone loved it. So everyone knows now there is a flaky test detector, and they can add it to their CI/CD pipeline. Or, for example, the Punit bot. The team wrote a blog post within our Confluence instance and wrote everything about the Punit bot, why they're doing it, how does it work, and how you can just like use it. So a lot of interactions also there. This is how we share our learnings for our developer joy. But it comes down to just like finding the right measurements and your survey results. Give those to your teams, to your autonomous teams, and give them time, like the 10% time for developer joy, to fix things. And I always want to do a Venn diagram in my talk, and here it is. Here you have dev quality, dev progress, dev value. This is what you want to improve. And right in the middle there, this is when developer joy is happening. And guess what? If all of these three things come together, you also solve the productivity problem, right? We enjoy what we're doing. We are just like moving forward fast because we became developers for a reason. This job is really, really fun, right? It's really great to create value for our customers. So that's also why there are so many people taking their spare time working on open source projects. Let's bring that fun back to work, right? Don't forget to have fun and work on your developer joy. Thank you very much. Thanks for coming.